Greetings and welcome to Essential Leadership Skills, the podcast with Kim C. Shaw. Hosted by our Director of Operations Glenn Daniels. Our guest today is a people champion, a leadership enrichment solution provider, a chief relationship officer. She is capable of motivating enterprises of all types. She is a certified John Maxwell coach, teacher, trainer, speaker, and a master influencer. Our guest knows the joy and tragedies of life. Marrying her childhood sweetheart and then having to deal with his unexpected passing. Yet, she has thrived. It is time for us to learn from Kim C. Shaw. It is time for Glenn to get to work. Let's go.
This is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge.
Well, good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome, Kim. It's been a while since we actually have seen each other face to face.
I know.
4 or 5, 6 years, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
Fantastic. I'm actually really happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us. I know that your time is precious. I'm going to try to honor your time, but I got a lot of questions for you. So.
Absolutely. Totally good to see you again, too, Glenn. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So my first question for you is Inspiring You. Okay, that's your organization. But
Yes.
what I want to know about is you, your organization. What is unique about you? What's important about you? What's important about your organization that most people just don't get, that you're going to say right now, this is why.
Well, first and foremost, when I tag myself as a people champion, and it's because of my genuine love for people. I'm really excited about a certification that I just finished with the University of South Florida about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And interestingly enough, it was an amazing program, but a lot of the things that are being taught is about people. So my passion for people is what allows me to do what I do. And I believe it allows me to do it well because it's genuine. It's not just what I do as a career or being an entrepreneur. It's who I am as a person. And that people connection is what's so important to me. And Inspiring You actually came from many years of being, of course, in corporate and being in roles where I have to lead others. And it's my philosophy is I work for the people that I'm leading. And people are like, you're so much of an inspiration. You inspire me to do so much. You inspire me this, and you inspire me. So when I decided to start Inspiring You, it just kept clicking to me. Inspiring you, I want to inspire you to do you, to be better. There's no limits. People say, you got to get out the box. I really never had a box.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
I kind of noticed that based upon when I worked with you, and then when I started reading about you and getting involved with some of your Facebook feedback and things like that, I started realizing, boy, boxes? No. And it made me realize, and this is a kind of a question, kind of a backstory. Why did you spend time in corporate America? Because your whole background was entrepreneurial shape. Why did you spend time in corporate there?
Well, as it said in the intro, back in, as a matter of fact, it's 1995. I lost my childhood sweetheart. I was with my husband since we were 11 years old.
By the way, how old were your kids when that happened?
My kids were, my youngest was 2, my middle one was 7, and my oldest was 13.
Okay. All right. So I didn't know that, so I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
No worries at all. Yeah. So when he passed away, we lived in New York. He was a drowning accident, and I was suddenly alone. I'd been with him since we were kids. We went to elementary school, junior high school, got married, had children, had the home, the car. We had, the life was grand, and then all of a sudden he was gone. And, being up north where I'm from New York, and, I just decided that I didn't want to raise my boys in New York, all boys. I moved down here to Florida the very next year. My family thought I was nuts. They were like, what are you doing? This is all you know, you're just going to get up and leave. And I decided to go into corporate, ironically enough, Glenn, so I can get somewhat of a normal life. because
Hmm.
being an entrepreneur, you work in insane hours, right? So and I changed my entire industry. I come from a background of hair designers. So when I
Yeah.
came to
Yeah.
Florida, I was a hair designer, but I changed my whole career. And, I was always a people leader type of person.
Yes, you
Even
are.
with our organizations, that's what I did. So I went into corporate to try to do the 9 to 5 so I can be more aligned with, trying to raise 3 children on my own.
Right.
And I still had that entrepreneurial philosophy, of course, because, whatever when you come from doing your own thing, it's ingrained. You're going to do even working with an organization as if it's your very own. And that's basically what I did.
I think people kind of miss that in the story. If you have that entrepreneurial background and that entrepreneurial feeling, when you go to work for a corporate, it's still that entrepreneurial feeling and background. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And the thing about it is like there's no such thing as a 9 to 5. The blessing for me, I did go into corporate in a leadership role.
Yeah.
I went in from day one as a leader. So I did not have the hours, my schedule was what it was, but my philosophy is the job is done when the job is done. So there was still a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, and I'm going to be there for my people when I
Hmm.
need to be. Yeah.
Well, and here's a question. Now, I have a whole list of questions, and like I told you before, I can write them all up, but I don't get to them because I have other questions.
Right.
How difficult was it for you, or not just for you, but for the people you work with, to understand that the leader supports the people? Yeah.
It just depends. Interestingly enough, the difficulty was more so from people above me,
Yes,
not the
yes,
people I served. Right. So my philosophy of 300, and this is a John Maxwell, amazing book, amazing teaching, 360-degree leader. The 360-degree leader leads up, across, and down. So there's no, leadership is in here. It's not a title. And we have something that we have to do when we're serving others. It's our role and our responsibility to provide for them. It has nothing to do with what my title is. Somebody who's taking the trash out of my office is just as important as the role that I hold. I just might have a little bit more responsibility than they do, but for making sure that things need to happen the way they need to happen. But I don't regard myself as any more important than someone else doing a different job. So, that difficulty came with, and I'm going to give you a prime example, the position that I just left not that long ago. I had a global team, and my main team was in the Philippines. So when I went to the Philippines to visit my team, we did a lot of things work related, but we did more things that were from a personal perspective and for me getting to know them, because I talk to them every day when I'm in the States. I talk to them on Zoom. We face to face every day. We worked every day. So I didn't want that visit to be exactly the same way it was as if I wasn't there. So what I did was I took the time to know who they were, knew who they were personally. I mean, we went out, I communed with them, and that's the epitome of, they say employee engagement. A lot of times people think that it's just people being happy at the job, but employee engagement is people engagement. So that was really important to me. And my superiors kind of they were not happy with me about that, because their mind's eye was, well, you got to make sure that they're up and ready to work the next day. That I understand. But if you really get into who it is and what your people really want as human beings, they will do 1000% more for you. Not one of them missed a moment. They were just more excited. And ironically, they said that this was the first time anybody had ever really engaged them the way I did from all the years that they had been working with the company. And that was a little sad for me, but it was exciting. And, some folks learned from that as well.
No, it's amazing. And get your slant on this.
Yeah.
When you engage in the way you did with the Philippines, and if we do that more as leaders.
Right.
So starting to understand the questions and the challenges that come about from each individual so they can be more productive, that creates more productivity.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the leaders above us and even the leaders below us don't understand. They think productivity means 24 hours a day job thought.
Right.
but there is no such thing. I mean, they're going to bring their problems in. So
excellent. Exactly. You remember the old adage years ago where we as leaders would have to tell our employees, well, you need to leave your personal life outside the door. See, you can't do that because we're human. You know, we might be able to compartmentalize a little bit, but you're still going to bring your whole self to work, just like you take your whole self home. And how you deal with whatever it is that you're dealing with at work and at home, it really has to do with the people that are in your life mostly, right? So when you're at work, we spend a lot of time at work and a lot of time with our people at work. So it behooves us as leaders to ensure that we are engaging and we are doing that deeper communication, and we value the people that are supporting our organization more so than the hours that they're putting in doing the tasks at hand.
So true. I want to ask you about John Maxwell because you started it and I started it actually. His 360-degree reviewing. That's one thing.
Yep.
But what is the most important lesson that you learned from all that training with John Maxwell? What's the most important lesson?
Oh, Lord. Okay. So I've been following John Maxwell since the 70s. I don't want to date myself. And before the John Maxwell team even came about, I've always read his books because his philosophy, again, is so aligned. I make a joke when I'm teaching this is a program that I'm Becoming a Person of Influence, which is an amazing program, by the way. And he says in that is leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Now, you can have a positive influence on people and you can have a negative influence on people. But John Maxwell's perspective and the way he approaches leadership is my philosophy. It's about the people, man.
Yeah, there you go. It is.
It's about the people.
And you have to love that.
You do. It's all about the people. And people know when you're genuine. People know when you're, it's about character. And it's about being that I don't have to say who I am. I don't have to come in and say I'm the leader and I'm the boss and all that. It's my character, the way I carry myself and the way that I commune with my people, that it's a given. It's an unspoken. I never, ever had to usurp my authority. It's just, it is what it is because I believe in that whole philosophy of it being about the people. That's what leadership is all about. It is about the people, less than it is about us. And that's his philosophy, and I love it.
I'm going to ask you a hard question because he has, 104 books now on leadership? I consider him the modern-day guru to leadership.
Absolutely.
What is the best book?
It's a very hard question.
Yes.
My favorite book is The 5 Levels of Leadership. Literally. The 5 Levels of Leadership.
That
right
is
here.
the best book.
I have it right here. And I have tons of them. Leadership Goal, there's Talents, Never Enough, and all that other stuff. But this, look at me endorsing John. This is my favorite. I've read it 1,000 times. It is my favorite book. Reason being is because I remember when I was working, where was I at? I don't even remember what organization I was working for, but I was on a plane on my way to Phoenix. I was with Rams. And I was on my way to Phoenix, Arizona. I've always had to travel, even when I didn't, I go to a job and like, I'm not going to have to travel. They always just want me to go to all the other places, right? And I was on a plane to Phoenix, Arizona, and I was reading. I was reading this book again, like for the 4th time. You know how same thing when you read the Bible, it's always an epiphany. You get a rhema word, something else jumps out at you again.
Yes.
And I'm on the plane, and I was reading about the 5th level, which is the pinnacle.
Pinnacle. Yeah.
Yep. And it's something in that I was like, oh. And the lady next to me, she goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm fine."
I'm great now because I realized.
I was like, "Got it. That makes so much sense." And she goes, "What are you reading?" And I showed her the book, and we had a long conversation, and it was a really good conversation. I love this book because it, when something really resonates with you, and I make this joke about, John is always reading my journal, and he's always in my business, and that's, he's just more famous than I am. That's why, but he's in my head and he's doing my thoughts.
Yep. That, by the way, is the best mentor, when the mentor speaks to what's back in your head.
Yes. Yeah. When I met John, I was like, and I'm not starstruck, but I was just like,
Right there. I can imagine.
It was just so cool. And he's such a cool person, and he's just like that all the time. Yeah.
You know, it's hard to pick out, but it's funny how you and I picked out the same book, and probably
It's
for the
yours
same
too?
reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the pinnacle, when you're a pinnacle leader, what does that mean? When you become that pinnacle, what does that mean?
People follow you because they want to. And that's the thing, you know, the levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. You in the beginning of the job, you know, you got to follow the leader regardless because you want to keep your job, you know. And it's not necessarily because that person's a good leader. They follow you at the 5th. The pinnacle is because of who you are as a person, and that is all of everything that we just talked about, right?
Right.
And that's just super important. And you know, the challenge. I think the biggest challenge that I had when I was in corporate was the things that I know and I feel and I believe in my values on the inside are new and are surprising and to people, and that's just a shocker to me because I just kind of expected more, you know, and I expected people to have more character and more knowledge of just the basic simple things when it comes to leadership.
Yes.
And I got to thank my mom for that because she taught me well. And you know, I shouldn't be surprised, but I am every single time, especially when it's somebody that I would expect to have that, you know.
It's
and
surprising.
It's like, wow. Yeah,
it's surprising and disappointing. I mean,
absolutely, even more so disappointing for me because especially if it's somebody that you really want to look up to and, you know, something happens and you're like, wow, that's, you know, that's kind
that's
of,
not the way it's supposed
it
to
takes
roll.
you back. Yeah,
You know,
takes you back.
For me, I look at some of the lessons in the military. You know, they've already gotten this. Why are we so far behind on it? I mean, what you just said a few minutes ago made me think of Colin Powell and the story he tells about when he was at the State Department. When he was in the country, when he was in Washington, D.C., he would go spend Thursday afternoons for a couple hours down in the parking garage because that was a lot of people mistreated them. That was the lowest man on the totem pole. And he would go down there and he said, I didn't even park down there. I had a driver who drove and dropped me off the front door, but I would go down there. Why? Because the lowest man on the totem pole is your strongest man to help you get there.
Absolutely. And it's just insane. I remember my dry cleaners when we used to have a dry cleaner come, and I still talk to him to this day, pick up our dry cleaning at BHN when I was there. And, you know, he is amazing. He would sit in my office and we would just chat up the storm. And he's like, I just love you. And I'm like, I just love you too, you know, and he felt like he was valued for more, you know, because he is.
But see, doesn't that drive people back to the pinnacle, back to wanting to be in your orbit, wanting to be with your values and sharing because they know you value them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even if they don't, what better way, you know, and this is why I feel leadership is not always easy, but people say leadership is not easy. I don't think it's hard, you know, because again, people have choices. You lay out the right roadmap, you lay out the, and you be there as the guide as best you can. Yes. And those who really want to take that teaching, and those who really want to will do. And those who are not ready won't. But the irony of it all is I've never really found anyone who wasn't really ready, or those who weren't ready, they always circle back. I have people 25 years. I remember when you taught me X, Y, Z. I'm going to use that. Yes. I love that.
That is so funny. Yeah. So funny. You know, I sometimes don't remember somebody, but 3, 4, 5 years later, hey, do you remember me? It's like, no. I wish I did.
Hey, how you doing anyway? How's it going? What you
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's really powerful. I initially asked you to come share your thoughts with us about John Maxwell. What else is out there about him? Okay, we both love the same book. I love the 21 Laws, and there's a lot of books that he has that are just great. What else, when you actually had that experience of working with John Maxwell, what was that like?
Oh my gosh! Again, so I go back on the DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah. When you go to a global conference of John, oh, Glenn, my hair's on my arm. I wish you could see the hairs on my arm are standing up.
Yeah.
It is the most amazing experience because you have people from all over the world.
I believe that.
From all over. I'm talking, they're in their native dress. And that's where you really feel the human aspect of life, of love, of joy. And we're all on one accord. You know, it's just like when you're in church, but even it's just like huge. And that's the thing about John. You know, he's his teachings, but I think his genuine love for people transcends the world. And that's one of the things that's also impactful for me. Yeah. Because that's how I feel.
You know? It does. I mean, just I call it the orbit that he's in.
Orbit. Yeah.
People want to get involved with that, and that's a really powerful place to be. So I can see when you're saying the hairs are standing up in your arm, because I can just see that. His 1 minute
August, and I can't wait.
Oh, see, that's good because we're back to live by then for sure.
Yes,
better be back to live.
And what better place to have it than in Orlando? I get to go every year.
That's cheating.
It is, right? I know, right? Yeah.
You know, so that's good, you cheater. No, I'm just kidding.
It's so if you want to go, I can see if I can get a ticket. I can go and take you too.
I'm going to take you up on that.
Okay. I will work on it and I'll get back to you.
Okay, fantastic. I do want to ask you about something that's in your title. What is a master influencer?
You know, it's another thing I was given. I was given that that title, and by my mentor, as a matter of fact. So from a master influencer, it's just like a master trainer. Apparently, I have grown to the level to where influencing is not something that I have to work on. It's not something that I have to learn. I've mastered the art of influence, whereas, and I believe personally, that's just me being who I am and me being genuine and me being having that love for people. I have the ability to influence people to do to think about the things that I'm thinking about, or sharing the things that I'm, you know, or the things that I share are resonating with them and influencing them to improve themselves. So that's basically what a master influencer is.
Okay, I'm going to say this because you were that when we worked together.
Oh, thank you.
So I don't know whether you're talking about the growth came in, you know, over the last 5 years or whatever, but you were that because you influence people to do the right thing.
Thank you.
To think about the right thing the right way.
Yeah.
Your work right now, what projects are you working on right now that allows people to become master influencer? And I don't know if you're going to hit on this or not, but I have a specific question about something that you're doing.
Okay, so right now I'm actually working, and thank you for asking that. I'm working on a couple contracts with the military. That's one thing; those are in the air right now. But I'm working on this big 3-day conference that you will see advertised shortly, and it's called Life on Fire.
Life on Fire.
Life on Fire. And what other way to really kind of jump into and help people kind of get a good feed on, because I don't think I'm any more special than anyone else. And what I do is my passion for it, I think, is what keeps me going. But it's anyone can do. It feels like, no, anybody can't do what you do. I'm like, kind of, yeah, you can. Yes. It's just your mindset and your perspective. And it's called Life on Fire. And I'm not going to share anymore because I'm putting my advertisement stuff together. But just look out for that. And it's just a blueprint on me. It goes from A to Z on me. It's open. It's going to be candid. It's going to be honest. It's going to be fun because I'm a clown. You know, it's going to be fun.
You're fun. You're fun. You're energetic. You're fun. And if nothing else, Life on Fire points back to that. But like you said, you'll wait till you get you don't want to give it away yet. But no, I understand that.
Thank you. So I looked when I did it this morning. I'm like, oh Lord, I look like a red rooster, but it's okay.
No, not quite. No, not quite at all. Let me ask you about something I found. Professional presence tips.
Okay.
What caused that? And the reason why I found it, and the reason why I know, because remember when I just said that you were doing this, you had that master influence when I was working with you,
Mm-hmm.
how you got people to do the right thing, you caused this to happen too.
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, it's a challenge, and I actually have a my meaningful moments, and I call it professional presence. A lot of times, people kind of get blindsided about the things that they either believe go into having a professional presence. And it's the little things. It's the eye contact. It's the smile. It's the head, foot, and feet. Well, it's the head, dress, and feet tip, different things like that. Just the little things. One of the other things that I think I just talked about was being your own champion. It's okay to toot your own horn without blowing it, making sure that you're sharing about yourself. A lot of times people feel they're too modest and they don't want to share about what it is that they do, or share what it is about who they are. It's okay to do those things in a professional, tactful manner. These are just little tips, and just having that presence, the handshake, just the basics. And I shared those, and believe it or not, I get a lot of feedback on, wow, that was great. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that.
Oh, I believe that. I believe that. Because I'd like to drill you down just a little bit on something here.
Sure.
And I'm going to give a little bit of a background story so that you can get there with me.
Mm-hmm.
You remember the office in Dallas?
Yes.
Okay. And oftentimes, the safest place for someone to be would be in that office. When they went back home, they were in a very bad, unhealthy, dangerous situation. Okay.
Yes.
The best place to be was in that office. They did not get training on how to be a good corporate citizen.
Right.
Okay. What would you say to one person who says, I want to be professional? What's the first thing they have to do?
I think the first thing that they would have to do is reflect on what it is that they have or what they're doing, and think about that. Be mindful. A lot of the challenges that we have when it comes to having that professional presence is going into things without first thinking about what it is you want to get out of it. So I want to go into this situation. This is what I expect to put into it, but this is what I expect to come out of it. And then this way you can gauge how you approach the situation. Then you can start working then you can look at the mechanics. You don't look at the mechanics of it all until you have your motives, until you have your expected outcomes, and then you go into how you're going to approach it. So I want to meet with Bob Johnson. And I want Bob Johnson to really know me as the person that I am. I want Bob Johnson to know that I have a contribution to this organization or to this role or to whatever it is that I want. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to ensure that he knows a little bit about me, and that I know about him, and that I am genuine and I really want to cultivate this relationship. And then I start thinking about, okay, I'm going to make sure that I have eye contact. I'm going to make sure that my attire is proper. I'm going to make sure that I have a firm handshake. I'm going to make sure that the first few seconds of the conversation that I have is going to make sure that I draw him in and not just focus on myself. Different things like that.
I think it's powerful, and it's one of those writable moments.
Yes.
You know, when you said, let's think about it first before we get into the techniques. Let's think about what is it that you want to, how do you want to show up?
How do you want to show up? Yeah. How do you want to show up? What do you want them to think and say and feel about you? And a lot of times that is unconscious, Glenn. People don't think about what they're thinking about.
No. And if you think about that, that's very profound. We don't think about what we're thinking about. That's a very profound, and we don't show up the way we want to show up because we're not thinking about it.
Exactly. And then at the end, you're like, oh, I should have said this. Oh, man, I can't believe I did that. Oh, I shouldn't have did that. That's why that happens. It's because we're not being mindful. We're not thinking about, we're not being intentional. That's the new buzzword that's out there right now. Intentional living, intentional. But it goes back to ensuring that you are first and foremost tailoring whatever it is that you want to do within yourself first. What is your expected outcome? Remember, what is it? 7 habits
of highly effective people.
Start with the end in mind.
Begin with the end in mind.
So that's that same philosophy. Begin with what do you want this outcome to be? Now go into how am I going to make that happen? That's
so true on so many different levels. Here's something that you said though that I want to maybe debate you on.
Okay.
Hard work and perseverance will always result in great reward.
Mm-hmm.
Not so sure I agree with that.
Okay. So great. I say great reward.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that great reward is based on what your expectation is. So my great reward may not be the same as somebody else's great reward. Okay, so say for instance,
Mm-hmm.
an example for me. When I can do a class for 1,000 people, and if only one person comes and says, "That was great. I got XYZ out of that. I got one light bulb." Somebody else who focuses on the masses and focuses, okay, I got 1,000 people, might be a little discouraged because, wow, I taught 1,000 people. I only got one person saying that they got something out of it. I'm not that way. That to me was a great reward. So I guess hard work and persevere. I mean, I that's just my thought. But what's your thought? I want to hear what you got.
Well, I'm kind of along the lines that when we say the word reward, what we're doing is looking for something outside of ourselves. We're
Ah,
looking for the pay raise, or looking for the promotion, or looking
okay.
for 900 people coming up to you and saying, "Hey, great job, you changed my life."
Right.
Looking for those things. And when we set that up, we're really setting ourselves up for expectation that leads to failure.
That's true. I never thought about it that way. I guess because I think from a reward perspective, from an internal perspective, sometimes for the most part for me,
Yes.
and an external, whereas my reward is someone else getting blessed, and
See,
to me, that's my reward.
but see, yeah, and so it's an internal thing for
Yeah,
you. It's
yeah.
not based upon prizes or how many
No,
people. It's an internal thing for you. So if one person can get it, it's an internal victory.
right.
I,
Absolutely.
I, I was trying to say, how do I rephrase that, but I can't really think of how to rephrase it, because if we could take the word great reward, a great internal reward, or a great self reward, or something,
And
I
you
don't
know
know
I'm
how to
gonna
change
you know I'm gonna lament on that, and I'm gonna fix that until I
that. And you will, but no, I can't have all these discussions and not disagree with something every now and then. So I just
I
kind
like
of,
that
yeah,
though, because think about that, Glenn. And if I don't want people to misinterpret what my motives are, right? So
right, right.
that's that communication 101. What's the motive? What is my motive? What am I trying to get you to get out of what I said there? And if that's what you got, who knows? I don't want that, and because, well, no, that's not true, because I busted my butt and I did everything and I worked my tail off and I never got that promotion, or I never got that attaboy.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
could
yeah.
be discouraging for people. So I'm definitely going to work on that.
Well, but also we have to remember that's the leader's fault. If I didn't
That's
give you that attaboy,
yeah,
that's the leader's
yeah,
fault. Well, I didn't say
that's it.
thank you for doing the job. That's the leader's fault.
Yeah,
So that's a whole just a thought that hit me.
talk about
Yeah,
that.
I
Yeah,
want to talk to you about something that I don't want you to relive the experience, of course,
hmm
but what were the lessons of going from that personal disaster that you had to the personal triumph that you've had over the last 10 years?
So I remember when it first happened, like it was yesterday. And if you can remember back to when I said that, I was young. Like I said, I was with him when 18.
Hmm.
We owned our own businesses and so forth. And even though I was a Christian, I still am, but I had the wrong mindset. My mindset was that I was in control, because basically everything that I did, although I gave, I guess in my head, the accolades to the Lord, my physical, and I guess in my heart, I felt like I was doing these things. So I can control how much money I made. I controlled, I had the relationship, the great relationship, the three beautiful kids all spread out 5 years apart, just like we planned,
Yeah,
the whole thing.
yeah.
And then when he passed away, I could not, that was out of my control. And I could not believe that I could not fix it. I couldn't control it. And that's when my whole mindset had to change, that I'm not in control. And every day is a moment that I have to do what I need to do to ensure that I take a moment to step back and say, this is what's going to be put out for me, and I'm going to go ahead and take it and do what it is that I have to do. And basically that's it. I challenge my kids, on those things all the time. My oldest is going to be 40 years old this year. I can't believe it. I'm like, boy, y'all are getting old. But yeah,
that's kind of rough to say, but it's true. Huh?
he gets antsy sometimes. He's a network he's a network engineer, and he got laid off during COVID, and he was just so upset. I've been here 15 years, and I said, you can't control. Remember, there's things that are out of our control. It's not what happens; it's how we handle it. You've heard that one before.
And that's the lesson you taught us that in a different way just a minute ago.
Yeah.
I'm going to control what I can control. And I'm going to remember, I'm going to step back and remember to do the things that I can do.
Exactly. And then that's basically how I had to live my life. And, I hear the whole, you're so happy all the time and you always laughing and you always, because that's just me. Actually, what you see now is the same me that I am every day. I listen to music all day, every day, loud. I dance all the time, and I'm singing all the time. And because being happy and joyful is what makes me happy and joyful, I guess. I don't know. There's not too many things that I let, if something impacts me and it hurts for a moment, but my mindset is, I go into the, can't control the situation, but I can control how I react to it. And then I can turn that thing around to, hopefully help make myself or help someone else in this situation. Yeah.
So powerful. And that lesson alone is one of those tweetable, rewritable moments.
Yeah.
What can I do right now?
What can I do right now? Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. So my last question, to be respectful of your time, maybe my last question. What questions should I have asked you that I didn't ask you? What questions should I have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Wow, Glenn. And this is where you got me stumped.
Good. No, I'm just kidding. You
gotta ask me about the business.
Yeah.
You asked me how someone should think and, approach that whole leadership or approach their life from a leadership perspective and from just wanting to grow. You've asked me, I don't think there's any questions that you should have asked that you didn't ask. I think you did a really thorough job in picking my brain.
Well, so here's what I want you to do. Inspire us. You've been doing it the whole time.
Guys, if you do not do anything today, I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I am bad. I am awesome. And I love me. And I want you to inspire someone else. I want you to do the very same thing. I want you to go and learn about one person or something about another culture, because the beauty of, I think, humanity is that we're all different. This is going to inspire you to continue. You can pour into someone. The least of us can pour into the best of us and the most of us. You guys are awesome. Know that you're awesome and look out for life on fire, because your life is on fire, guys.
Life
you
is
just
gonna
gotta know it. You gotta take that thing in,
I'm a double dog dare everybody to remember, your life is on fire. Light it. Let that light shine.
There you go.
But I'm also going to remind you and double dog dare. No, I'm going to triple dog dare everybody to go out and inspire at least one other person.
Absolutely.
With what you said. I got to tell you, I have not had more fun on these in a long time. So I appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, I know you're kind of busy because you got a lot of things you're shaping up, but it's been fantastic. I want to thank you for taking the time to share with our audience. A lot of good tweetable, a lot of good writable statements you have there. Leaders, this is where you want Inspire to be. I think you all would agree with that. Thank you
so much. Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate you. You guys have an amazing day.
Absolutely.